Well, hello there and welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. My name is Sam Hind and we decided that today would be a perfect day to talk to you about one of the biggest influences on our business. The thing that affects it the most when it's going well and the thing that has the greatest impact when it's not. You know, we often look at our businesses and we think that the things that we're doing, the tasks that we're completing, you know, the things that we're learning have the greatest impact on the success of our business. Well, I hate to tell you, but I think you'd be wrong there. And I speak from experience when I bring in a very, very incredible individual, Mike Johnston, today to talk to us all about how relationships not only affect our everyday life, but they also affect the success of our business. Mike's going to talk a little bit today about how we can control better what's going on in our relationship and home life, which will also in turn help us to do better in business life. Greg and I work together every day. We're also married and we're parents. And with that comes a wide array of challenges. We've got some incredible individuals that we place around us to help us every day to ensure that we're living our mission, that we are being the best for one another, the best for ourselves, but that we are growing this business and this legacy that we're creating in life. And we have learned a lot along the way. And let me tell you right now that we are going to continue learning for the rest of our lives. But one of the people that has had a very, very big impact on both our relationship life, but also our working life is Mike. We're very privileged to be able to bring in Mike today to chat with all of our listeners about some hot tips when it comes to relationships, but also how to recognize some of the things that might be a little bit different between the guys and the girls out there. And I know that when I first heard Mike talk about these things, it was just like a huge weight off my shoulders. And I know for Greg as well, because the both of us just went, that's it. Yes. And I know you're probably going to feel the same way as you listen to this podcast episode today. So today we're going to be bringing in Mike Johnston, who is the head coach of MJB Seminars. Mike is one of our personal coaches. He helps us in business and also in personal life. He is speaking from experience with a lot of what he teaches, but he's also a really down-to-earth individual. He says it how it is, and I know that you're going to love listening to him today. So get that pen and paper ready, because I know that today is going to be filled with not just golden nuggets, but I think some life-changing pieces of information that might just steer things back on track for you, like I know it has time and time again for Greg and I. He's even going to give us some fun little exercises in here to do so that we're not only listening and learning, but we're also able to take action. So I know you're going to love this episode. If you've been struggling a little bit throughout the holidays, perhaps, or maybe holidays are irrelevant, you've just been struggling in general, or if you're just interested in continuing to grow your connection and your relationship with your loved one or loved ones, then you're going to love this. So tune on in, get that pen, paper ready, and open up your heart, open up your mind. I know you're going to love this. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back into the Direct Selling Accelerator podcast. I am super duper excited to be welcoming on in Mike Johnston from MJB Seminars. Welcome on in, Mike.
Hello.
This is actually going to be a really fun podcast episode because we get to talk about something that's not very related to social media today, but I feel like is super relevant for everybody out there. And that is not just relationships, but when relationships get a little strained. Specifically, we're going to be talking about relationships over holiday periods. We've just, when this episode's coming out, we're going to be sort of off the back of Christmas and New Year's and all of that crazy busy time. And Mike, you and I were talking about this because Greg and I have had the absolute pleasure of working with you and Mitch and Mills at MJB for, I'm going to say maybe 5 years now. And over that time, we've learned a lot about ourselves, but we also know that you still have struggles. And we had a really great conversation about relationships recently. And I rang you and said, look, I really feel like this is something our audience is going to love to hear and get so much out of, because I think sometimes we're really afraid to say when we're struggling and we're really afraid to ask for help. So thank you for joining us, and let's dive on in and talk a little bit about relationships and that nitty gritty that we avoid so much.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Cool. So, Mike, why is it, first of all, we specifically experience relationship troubles at the very worst of times?
There's a concept that I've been working on for a while called needs and values. And it basically comes down that we have these 7 core basic needs and values. And the one that probably makes us the most unsettled is our need for certainty, our need to know that we'll avoid pain, our need to know that we're going to be okay. And it's the one that kind of rises up the most. So when you're in situations where that really gets tested, and look, you're not probably going to get hunted down by a saber-toothed tiger anymore, but you might be worried about your ability to pay the bills after Christmas, or you might be worried about, income. There might be stresses that go on that cause you to feel uncertain. In those moments, right, we tend to go insular. We tend to go inside and we tend to try and take control and meet our own needs to make sure that we're okay. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, we generally butt up against our partner's needs. So, in the beginning of the relationship, when you're in that fantasy world where perfect, that's Prince Charles, or that's my queen, or however you look at it, that's easy because you've got all your filters turned off. You feel totally safe in that moment. But as conflict starts to pop in, and you need conflict, we tend to start to then feel insecure ourselves. And that's when we'll try and grab the reins of our relationship. We'll grab control of the relationship. And then generally we're costing our partner something. It becomes a negotiation or a transaction at that point. And that's when it starts to get hurt.
Now, Mike, just as we sort of dive into this topic, we actually came into contact with you initially over doing some business development, learning how to grow our business. But I feel like we spend most of our time with you talking about relationships. So I know now what the correlation is, but can you maybe just tell everybody a little bit of what you do and how that all works in with relationships versus business?
At the end of the day, I got into business. I started during tough times. That was when I got my chance to kind of shine. And I was really good at driving revenue. Now, to drive revenue, you have to build client relationships, employee relationships, and you got to influence people. And I started to notice that it really was all the same, whether that's an intimate relationship or a friendship or a business relationship, it is the same dynamics at play. And you start to see these things over and over again. As a coach, I can remember going into businesses and working at the cash flow and then having the side conversations going, okay, so now that we've sorted that out, there's this thing going on with my wife, right? And it was just, I naturally started to pull in there because the dynamics were the same. I know they seem different. And, if I try to use it as a direct metaphor, it can seem quite cold and calculated. There's a lot of crossover. Relationship is your ability to influence, communicate, and be in relationship with another is probably one of the core human skills that we need to constantly be developing.
Yeah. And it's really interesting as well, because a lot of us, I feel like we compartmentalize our relationships versus our business. I know that for many years when I was struggling with, Greg and I might have had an argument, I would then dive deep into work and work super duper hard because I could feel like I was succeeding over here and kind of ignore the elephant over there, or the other way around. If business wasn't going so well, I could sort of dive on into the relationship. But I guess something I see a lot of people doing, we were just having a conversation with somebody today about this very thing actually, which is that we separate them out thinking they're completely separate and they don't affect each other. But in actual fact, something you've taught us is that, you've got to get one right for the other to be successful, meaning your relationship has to be right in order for the business to work, because otherwise business doesn't go so well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a masculine and feminine view of the world, right? Is that if I took the masculine view of the world, they would see their life as a giant jar of marbles, right? And let's say there's one sad marble in there. Let's call it a blue marble, right? They get it in, and what masculine will tend to do is focus on the other marbles, wait for that blue marble to rise to the top, and they'll pluck it out. Yep. They'll deal with it when they have to. The feminine viewpoint is the jar isn't marbles, it's a jar of water. And if you get a blue food coloring drop in there, it filters through the entire bit. So feminine energy tends to see when one thing goes wrong, it affects everything. Mm-hmm. Now, there's more truth in the feminine model than the male model, although both offer advantages. Meaning, for instance, you can absolutely achieve in your business during those periods when you compartmentalize, but you do pay a price, right? Eventually, you have to deal with that marble. And by then, it's not one marble, it's a great big, bowling ball lying in your jar at that point. It actually grows over time. Whereas the feminine viewpoint, it will kind of disrupt everything.
Mhm.
And you've got to go clear it out. And I think one of the key in every relationship, there is a feminine energy and there's a masculine energy.
Yep.
And sometimes those roles can interplay with one another. So at times you're feminine, at times you're masculine. And generally, if you're in a relationship, the partner will adopt the other energy.
Yep.
What you want to do is give them the space to be in the energy they're more natural to, and recognize that we view the world differently. And I guess that's like a visual metaphor that they can use to understand that we really do think differently between the two energies.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, really interesting, Mike. I know that you're going to give us some tips today on what people can do if they are really struggling at the moment, and you've got an exercise and things we're going to talk about. But you also told a little story the other day, which really relates, because I think sometimes I feel that we are looking at things from very different perspectives. I know that there are so many times where it feels like Greg and I are on different planets talking about the same thing. And you explained this the other day in the most beautiful of ways. Do you want to just share that little analogy? Or it's not even an analogy because it's a true story.
It's a true story, yeah. So just to give some context, there's like 3 core needs of feminine energy and there's 3 core needs of masculine energy, and they're different. If I take the number 1 need for feminine, it is the need to feel understood, the need to feel like I get you, right? That I'm listening, that I'm part of it. So the number 1 for a male is appreciation. They need to feel appreciated. Often, if you're feminine, you'll see this as ego stroking. It absolutely is ego stroking, but they need it. They require for somebody to appreciate them for who they are in the moment. The second need is the need to feel seen. This is the female version of feeling significant. Is they want to feel like you notice the small things, the little details, the extra things they do, that you're taking notice of this. For males, though, it is the need to feel free, to do it their own way, to do it how they want, that rebellious streak. For females, the third need is to feel safe, right? To feel free from worry, just because there's a lot they have to consider. Remember, their jars are water, so to feel safe from the drop of blue. And for a male is to feel opened up to. That's males want to feel trusted, and having somebody open up to them meets that need. Okay. So knowing that the two worlds see each other differently, I'll relate the story. So what was happening was when our kids would start school, we wanted to get to know all the parents. It's very hard to do when you're dropping your kids off at school and you see them for 5 minutes. So one of the ideas we had is for the birthday party, we would set it up for after school and we'd invite all the kids and all the parents from the class over, right? And it would be a big barbecue and it'd be a chance for the kids to get to know each other, but also the parents to get to know each other, which is a great idea. And I would typically work and then rush home just before everything started. And that was the case in this day. I get home, people have already started to arrive. I rush into the house, right? I kind of make eye contact with everybody in the room. I look to my wife. I got to look like a good husband here, right? So I look over to my wife and she's busy doing all the salads and all the things. Her mom's helping her. I look over at my wife and I go, "Hon, are you okay? Do you need a hand?" And she goes, "No, I'm fine," right? So I grab a beer and I start chatting with everybody. Now I can see people already cringing at this point. Don't worry, I'm going to get there, right? So I grab a beer and I start chatting with everybody. I'm telling the stories I always tell to connect with people. Suddenly I hear there's this banging in the kitchen, right? Things are kind of being tossed in the kitchen. I walk over to my wife. I just excuse myself politely from the conversation. I walk over and I go, "Hon, are you okay?" And she just like suddenly goes dark and there's this like cloud above her. And she looks at me. She's like, "I would like to be out there too, but I'm in here making salads." And I was confused because when I first walked into the house, I looked at her and went, "Are you okay?" And when she said she was fine, I heard she was fine. But what I was meant to hear at that moment was, "No, you stupid bastard. There's people arriving and I'm not ready yet. I'm freaking out here. They've arrived early, you've arrived late, and I haven't even got the salads made," right? So on my third attempt here, I hear it. I start, fiddling around, helping with the salads, getting them out, talking to people. So anyway, I'm feeling guilty as at this point, right? It's like, man, how did I miss that? So I'm out there. Now it's my turn. The meat comes out. My wife says, "Can you start the barbecue?" I start the barbecue. I get the meat out there. I grab a beer. I stand in front of the barbecue and I'm working the stuff. My wife comes over and goes, "You okay?" I go, "Yeah, great. Go have a chat. I'm fine." And my wife picks up the tongs and she starts flipping the burgers and moving the sausages. And I look at her. I'm like, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm helping you." I'm like, "But I told you I was okay. Do you not think I can do this? Right? I'm capable of working this barbecue. I don't need any help. I got this. Go away." Right? Now she walks off kind of confused, looking at me like I was speaking some alien language, looks a little bit hurt and walks off. At the same time, I'm thinking, man, she was just complaining she didn't get a chance to talk to anybody. And here she is trying to help me. And it was clear that we were just seeing the world. Now everybody's got an example of a story like this.
I love that. And actually, when you were telling this story, the first time Greg and I were on this call with you together, he just turned around and looked at me and he goes, so you don't necessarily mean exactly what you say. He goes, fine or good doesn't always mean fine or good. I was like, no. He goes, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like from a female's perspective, and I'm sure some of our listeners do this, when everything's all kind of quiet and you can you look over and you see your husband or your partner or your boyfriend or whatever is kind of brooding and you ask, what are you thinking about? And they go, nothing. And you think there is no way they're thinking about nothing right now. Like they are thinking about how they're mad about something that I've done, or you create this whole world of things that are going on in their heads. And I remember pestering Greg one day. He's gone, no, I'm not thinking about anything. I was like, Greg, what are you thinking about? And he's like, I'm just thinking about solar power energy and how I can, and he's on this tangent. He's like, I was literally thinking about nothing. But then when you asked me what I was thinking about, I started thinking about solar power and like,
yeah, look, when you see masculine energy and it's brooding and quiet, they're probably, not always, but probably thinking about their blue marble. But because it's compartmentalized and not part of the relationship, it's nothing in relation to you.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, yes, my mind's absolutely over here and doing. We've all done that too, where we've hounded into an argument. Yeah. Are you okay? Sam, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. You don't seem fine. Are you sure you're okay?
And then you start thinking,
it's like,
what could I be mad about?
You seem a bit mad, and you're thinking, I'm getting mad.
Yeah. I'm going to think about something to be mad about so we can actually make this a real conversation.
Yeah. And the thing is, even if you don't consciously do that, your brain is trying to answer the question over and over again. And you think, yeah, he always does this. He hounds me.
Yeah.
Right. He can't just leave well enough alone. He's got to keep pushing. He's not giving me my personal space. He's not. And we create the problem. Our brain creates the problem through the question, because you can't not answer a question. Right. If I was to ask everybody who's listening to this podcast what's the most despicable thing they've ever done to another human being but secretly enjoyed, they're all answering that question right now. They're probably not going to tell me, but they're answering it. Yeah. So when somebody asks you a question like that over and over again, you start with an answer. Yeah. But the truth is, if you see your partner and they're masculine and they're brooding, there is a good chance that they're thinking about the blue marble.
Yeah.
Right. Feminine energy is more willing to talk about it because that's how they work out where the food coloring is.
Yeah.
Right. And so one thing guys, I think, have to understand is, like, a guy will go, once I've dealt with the marble, I've dealt with the marble. Whereas females might have to go 2 or 3 times back to the conversation to kind of work out that there's still food coloring in there. And it's like, okay, what's really going on for me? And they'll have to go back. Yeah. And so a guy will think he's being beat with a stick here because he's like, we've already had that conversation, but the feminine energy needs that.
Yeah.
To work out how they feel. And it's like, you've got to kind of step into it. So look, this is where I like to give an exercise, right? So if you're going through a bit of a challenge period in your relationship, or, you're just looking to make it that little bit better, right? You just want to create a bit more connection, a bit more intimacy with one another. First off, absolutely get that your partner has separate needs, which we talked about earlier, right? If they're feminine, they need to feel understood, they need to feel seen, and they need to feel safe. If they're masculine, they need to feel appreciated, they need to feel free, and they need to feel opened up to. Mm-hmm. So the first core, if you want more of a relationship, you have to be willing to give. If you're trying to meet your own needs, you will cost them theirs. Okay. So one of the things is you have to give to the other partner. So first thing exercise I'm going to give is to the feminine energy of the relationship, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things you can do is genuinely appreciate your masculine counterpart, right? Every day. They need it like every day. So picking something that's genuine that you can appreciate them for, appreciate them in front of your friends, appreciate them publicly, celebrate their small wins, even if you think they're effing stupid. Like, celebrate like the little things they get excited about, celebrate it with them.
Yeah.
If you do that, if you just make that little habit of going, I am just going to appreciate this person every single day, celebrate them in some way, and brag about them to, in publicly in front of other people, you are going to get so much more. That person's going to feel 100% appreciated, and you're going to find them more connected in that moment. Now, if you're masculine, one of the things you can do is you're going to have to be present. I learned this is through a story through my daughter, right? So I have two boys, and then I had our third try was a daughter. And so my two boys, how they hung out with me was just what I said, right? They would sit shoulder to shoulder with me. They'd do something with me that they loved, and they genuinely get excited about it. As long as I was a little excited about it too, we were totally connected. Right. So he's sitting down, he's showing me a Pokemon card and how rare this Pokemon card is. And I got really excited about that. He was happy. He was connected with me. He was shoulder to shoulder with me. It didn't even matter if I was staring at my phone or doing, as long as I was participating. My daughter, so when my daughter comes along, right, being a typical man, I connected with her the same way. I'd done so well with my sons, right? Thinking, I'm a good dad, connect the same way, get something you love. And so she brings up a book. She doesn't want to sit beside me. She wants to sit on my lap, right? She wants to crawl up on my lap. And one day I'm kind of staring at the TV, glancing at the TV, glancing at my wife who's talking to me, staring down my phone, glancing at the TV, staring. My daughter goes, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And I was like, I'm right here. She was sitting on my lap. I'm like, right here. And she grabbed my face and she goes, no, look at me. You're not here. Look at me.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. And it was like this powerful message that with feminine energy, spend 15 minutes, 5 to 15 minutes, really just talking, right? Either do it at some point that's convenient to you, or if you have kids, go to bed together and just hold each other and just look at each other and talk, just connect, right? Just listen. And like from a masculine standpoint, this is like the easiest thing in the world, because often you don't have to say a thing, right? You just have to
I do all the talking for you.
Yeah. You just have to acknowledge every now and then. You just have to actively listen. But don't stare at other things. Make sure you're looking at them and then go through it. And the last tip I'll have is for both of you. If you really are kind of like triggering each other and like you're just in that really challenging period, one of the things is we run our own little stories in our head. And so often what we're triggered by isn't the actual person or the event, but something we learned to be triggered from as a kid. So we saw our parents, or maybe it was something that happened to us in a relationship. And one of the ways you can bypass that, it won't solve it, but you can bypass it to get what's really going on, is go back to back with one another. It's stupid. This is totally a stupid thing, but go back to back with one another. Yep. Reach behind you and hold hands where you got like your fingers interlocked, and then talk. Okay. So there's two reasons this works. So we turn off all your senses, so all you can do is really listen to what they're saying, and you can't see the perceived eye roll or the tension between their thing or anything like that. Yep. So it keeps those other elements from getting in the way. It keeps your story from getting in the way. Number two is you feel really ridiculous, so it's really hard to be angry when you're that ridiculous. And number three, if she is going to clobber you over the head with a frying pan, you got her hands locked. Yeah. Good call. Yeah.
I love that. And you were saying as well, Mike, a little while ago, we were talking about this. And look, we all go through serious challenges. We all have arguments. We all have tough times. And, like some of those things that you're saying, I'm like, yeah, but when you're really struggling, the last thing you want to do is look each other in the eye and just talk or, compliment them, because it doesn't feel real and it's not genuine. But you did make the point that, one of the things that you and your beautiful wife have learned to do is to bring, a sense of humor into your challenges. Do you want to, elaborate on that a little bit? Because, this was a bit of an aha moment for me because, let's face it, sometimes when you get into those serious, do you ever find yourself, you're in a really big argument, you get out the other side and you're like, I know I'm so mad at you right now, but I can't even remember what we actually started being mad about in the first place, but I have to continue being mad because otherwise I look like an idiot.
Well, it's not just like, the emotion's what feels real, right? And you can get into, because we've all had that dream too, where you've had a fight with your partner in the dream and you wake up and the next morning you're staring at them over breakfast and you're thinking, you, right?
Greg actually said to me a while ago, I know I'm mad at you right now, but I can't remember if I was mad at you in my dream or if you actually did something. For like half a day. I was like, have you
stay like this so that I don't lose face? I'll just stay like this until I remember. Yeah. Right. And it's like, we often get into an argument over really trivial things. So it's like these little reminders or triggers that kind of pop up, and they're actually not that important. But you're like, I need to say it because if I don't say it, it's going to become important. And so blah, blah, blah. And then you get into it and it becomes that we're costing each other their need. Yeah. Right. So there's, in every relationship, right, there's a pursuer and a withdrawer. Somebody who pursues often the feminine energy because they want to feel understood, and then masculine energy because it wants to feel appreciated is often the withdrawer. And so what happens, we end up in a fight. So this is probably another example where everybody can relate, is I'm sitting there one day and my wife's like, okay, I can tell, it's been eggshells for a while. I can tell we need to have a chat. So I go, the stupid question again, you okay? And I was like, okay, so we need to talk.
Question.
And then my wife goes, I'm not feeling very connected to you right now because you did this and you did that and you did the other thing. Now, my wife at this point in time isn't loving this, but she's thinking this is better than not talking.
Yeah.
Right? At least we're connecting now. At least we're getting it in.
Yeah.
Now, in the meantime, what I hear is criticism, you're not good enough, criticism. So I start pulling back, right? I'm like, this isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
When we weren't talking, at least I could get on with it was her problem. Now I'm seeing that I'm the problem.
Yeah.
This isn't good. So what happens is in that I'll either try to defend for a while, see if we can come to a negotiation where both sides are happy, which never works, right? Or what happens is I'll withdraw it. Now, when I withdraw, feminine energy looks and goes, he doesn't even care.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't care about this at all, right? So the feminine energy often feels even less connection than they felt before.
Yeah.
The masculine energy goes, man, she thinks I'm a pile of garbage. So he withdraws. Now, she wants to fight because she's trying to save the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to withdraw because he's trying to save the relationship. We both want the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to protect ourselves in that moment, try and get what we want, take control of what we want, is costing the other person.
Yeah.
And we've all been that, where the door gets slammed, you're in two separate rooms, and both of you are thinking, well, that didn't go well. Feeling pretty lonely, I'm feeling pretty disconnected. I'm still hopeful, I still love this person, I still want to connect it, but I feel like the bridge is too far. I feel like if I try to talk, I actually don't get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, that's in that moment where I least likely want to connect in that moment, right? As masculine energy, that's when I need to connect.
Yeah.
That's really when I need to go in and go, right, I'm not going to say anything. Just get it off your chest. Tell me everything that's going on for you. And I'm not going to get defensive. I won't say it about me. Even if you say it's about me, it's not. Right. And just going in, because everything in a relationship is either a cry for help or it's a loving comment. We can all understand the loving comments, but the cries for help we mistake as other things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's in that moment where she's hurting because her needs aren't being met. And I have to bravely go, mine aren't being met, but it's because I'm not meeting hers. So I'm going to start this. Or the feminine does the same thing where she's got to go, you know what? I can see that you're pulling back. I just want you to know, I think you're the most amazing person in the world. I would never change anything. But to your note, also having a bit of fun with that.
Yeah.
So one of those moments where I caught myself in that state, right? Where I was like, I was fighting. I was like, I'm just trying to win. Like what we're fighting about is actually not even that important to me. I'm just in this state where I'm like trying to negotiate because I don't want to be criticized. And so suddenly I just walked, we had like one of those countertops that looks out into the dining area. And I walked around the countertop, looked back to where I was standing and started fighting against myself. Telling myself like all the stuff I was saying in my head. I was telling myself, why don't you just shut up and listen? Why don't you just be here and listen to me? And my wife kind of looks at me and goes, what the hell are you doing? I look at her, I'm like, I've just never won one of these, so I just wanted to be on the winning side. And it was that moment where she kind of went dark and then smirked. And we both realized it was over.
Yeah.
In psychology, we call them a pattern break, but be playful, have some fun with it. I had a girlfriend, in fact, every time we would argue and she was, she could see my logic was starting to win. She would just flip up her shirt and go, look, kaboo. And I would just stop. I would just stop in my tracks. It's like having a bit of fun with each other, bringing in that childlike, wonderment and joy is really what the relationship's about. Even if you get to a point where you both agree, but you lose that part of you, the relationship's going to feel dead. Yeah. So to bring back that kind of childlike, somebody described to me, they had 2 kids from separated families. And, there was some fighting between the couples, which wasn't beautiful. But eventually when they resolved it, they came together and the 2 kids, brother and sister, just ran at each other like long lost lovers and just hugged and held on. And that is what each of us want to do in a relationship. When we're fighting, that's what we want to do. So why don't you do it? Yeah. Right. And you do it because you don't want to look bad. Your ego gets in the way. Yeah. And, and you don't want to expose yourself just in case this, what the story you're telling me, this heartless soul on the other side takes more of an advantage of you. The truth is, if you really felt that they were like that, you wouldn't be in the relationship. Yeah. So just be a bit brave. Just go first. And so whoever you are, if you're the feminine energy or masculine energy on this, just go first. Whoever's listening, just go first.
I love that. It sort of answers what I was about to ask there, because I know that, a lot of people will be listening to this podcast and they'll be thinking, well, my partner's not listening to this. So how am I going to do this if I'm the only one that sort of just heard this information? And, what you just said there, the go first. And actually, if it was you that said this to me recently, was the person that knows better needs to do better. And,
it wasn't me, but I should have said that.
I don't know who it was, but I was like, damn, that is not what I needed to hear. It was actually in an argument I was having with one of my kids, which was, we've got teenage kids now, which is challenging in itself. And this person said to me, look, at the end of the day, you know better, so you need to be the one to do better. And, when you get a little piece of information, sometimes it's like this, particularly in a relationship when stuff's hard, you're like, I don't want to be the only one that's making the effort. And you sort of get this self-righteous attitude, which really just doesn't do anything to help at all. So, if you were to give one piece of advice to anyone who's listening to this, and keeping in mind, probably most of our listeners right now will be the female energy. There'll be some guys in there, no problems, but probably most of the female energy, except when Greg listens to this podcast, because I know he won't be able to resist. What can they do if they're struggling at the moment? They've had it, it's been a bit, you're thinking like things aren't quite right. They're a bit tough. We just keep locking heads, and maybe off the back of Christmas, or maybe it's been going on for a lot longer than that. What's something they can do right now when they walk back into home, or they turn this podcast off and start paying attention to their masculine energy right now? What's something that they can do without the other person having done anything or knowing what's going on?
Look, be true to yourself. So if you're feminine, if you're naturally feminine, right, which is the majority, as you said, of your listeners, right? If you're naturally feminine, then you've got to meet the needs of your masculine partner. Right. So the activity that I gave before, just start appreciating them. We've all in a relationship got to have the F word. We've all got to have it, right? A little bit of faith that if I can meet the needs of my partner, my needs will be met. Now, I can show you example. We do this with thousands of people per year. I can show you example after example after example where you lead first and the universe supplies in abundance to you. There's biblical stories about this, right? Where, the king that asks for wisdom is the one granted everything. The one that wants to give the most receives everything as a reward. So go into the relationship and just try it. Change you first. And then if that doesn't work, change the relationship. But first change you. Go in and go, I'm going to meet their needs. And often I think, 90% of the time, where there was love once, there'd be love again. Right? There's the few relationships out there that were never right to begin with that cause pain to both sides. And in those cases, maybe ending the relationship is probably the right news. But for most relationships, they're repairable. Like most are repairable. They just come down to a point where they're tripping over each other. So if you're masculine, then go do the exercise where you spend the 5 to 15 minutes just trying to help that person feel understood. If you're feminine, then go appreciate that person. Appreciate them daily. Like, make sure if you're going to have the conversation, the conflict conversation, then make sure you appreciate them before and after.
Yeah. We used to call that a shit sandwich.
There's a formula for communications called Imago, where they start off with an appreciation, they end with an appreciation.
This is this in the Love and Respect book?
Therapy, I think, is based off the Love and Respect book, actually.
Yeah, I've read about this, and it's sounds really powerful. Haven't tried it yet.
It is. If you want, guys, just YouTube it.
IMAGO, Imago. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. If they YouTube it, they oversell it a bit, so it seems like a pretty unrealistic conversation. The truth is that the concept works, and the concept's really about just meeting the needs of your partner. And it's about unconditional love. If you want unconditional love, then you have to love unconditionally. There's no other way to receive it, right? Unconditional love can't be, received; it can only be given. So, So what you said before, if you're the one that can see that this isn't the way it's supposed to be, then it's you that's got to live up to that.
Yeah, super powerful. I love that, Mike. And I think there's some things in there that everyone can go away and do. And it doesn't mean that it's easy. And you did say something before, and I just want to, you said, be the one to change. And it doesn't mean change you or change your values or change who you are. It just means, be the one to change your behavior.
Can I just be clear, right? I'm talking about either change your perspective or change your actions.
Yeah.
Don't change who you are. Who you are is bloody perfect, but change your perception or change your actions. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Super perfect. I love that. Look, I think this is really powerful, Mike. I can talk about this same thing with you again and again. Every time we do, I pick up something else. And I know that you've been an amazing support for Greg and I. We've obviously got it, with relationship on steroids because we work together as well, which certainly adds another element of challenge, I've got to say. So we really appreciate you and all the time that you put into those that you work with. And you don't ask a lot in return, but you're so willing to give and help and use examples from your journeys. So thank you so much much for your help today. It's been awesome. And I'm really sure that it will have spoken into a lot of relationships out there. So we really, really appreciate you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That was very beautiful.
But I do want to just ask if anyone wants to learn a little bit more, if they're like, hey, this is great, I love what Mike's saying, but I feel like it's the tip of the iceberg and I really want to learn more, I want to do more. What else can they do with MJB or with you or with Mitch and Mills? Can you give us a few options?
Okay, yeah. Look, they can follow MJB on Instagram or Facebook. We're on there live all the time. So you'll get like chances to actually interact with us. I know I'm on there 3 times a week and Mitch and Mills are 1 or 2 times a week. So we're on there all the time. There's Dorothy and the Dealer, which is our podcast.
Yeah, love
which
the
has
podcast.
a number of different guests. But yeah, following us there. And finally, we have, we'll share the link, but we have something what we call Bridge the Gap, which really helps us understand those patterns that are going on inside of us.
Yeah, awesome. And Greg and I have done that. We've done all of your courses, but that's a really amazing one to jump in and do as well. It's a real eye opener. And I think, when we go off on a journey where we want to learn how to improve our lives or achieve our goals or improve our relationship or our work or whatever it is, it all comes back to us. What can we do? What work can we do on ourselves rather than everybody and the world around us? And it's just so powerful when you start doing that. And I feel like, it's a never ending journey. We'll be doing this till the day that we die, but it's very rewarding. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Look, thank you so much again, Mike. Really appreciate you and the whole team at MJB. Love the fact that you've been able to join us and speak about this little, poke the bear a bit today, speak about this very, I think, timely topic. But yeah, thanks again. God bless everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you all again on the podcast next week. But bye for now.
Bye now.